occasion to think that you wish your pilot had something more more on board for equipment? A short sling, a hook knife, a wrench? Is there anything that you would recommend, or is it really up to you?
Maybe just something to stay warm. You know, it's almost like some of them are in shock when I get to them, and they've been up there a while. It's cold. It's maybe something to snack on or some water. You know, because I can bring the Gatorade and the sugar to get your fuel to get back up the side of a mountain or something. But any little thing you think might help you deal with being in the tree for a while, and then if you possibly have to hike out for an hour. And think about what that's like.
We find it's a 2.5-hour sit. That's why you heard me say to Leo. I mean, that's just what it is. And we have been blessed with having Pete, who will leave whatever he's involved with and come across town and come and climb that tree. And you can see that is no small affair to get on location with ropes and this and that and get up there. And at his age, you're 50 what? 54 years old. King County will not be able to get you. Matter of fact, when they get here, they're trying to call Pete, and so we owe you a
anybody?
applause. Thank you for being with us so long. Pete will let me know when he's leaving for a few weeks and he's elsewhere, and frankly, I know that we are in trouble. He left for a season once to help his folks, and unbeknownst to all the realm, I know that we're not good. So having Pete as dedicated as he has been is huge. All right. You did mention when we were looking. We went for the walk down the rescue trail, which Pete cut. He made 100 forays to lay it out, and I'm hoping that we'll get the moxie to go and really make it to finish it down. But we saw some trees that had such girth that, he said that, that's probably a $4,000 or $5,000 rescue, and he still wouldn't know how he would get his flip rope around the girth of the tree to get to you. Comment?
Yeah, well, I do have some slingshots, so I'll shoot some rope pretty high. Shooting 100 feet up in there, but there's just more gear and stuff. So if somebody does go into one of those big, huge monsters, it'd be nice to know ahead of time so I can bring the right gear. So I'm not hiking in and out for 2 or 3 hours having to pack all this junk in for one rescue. If I could get it all done at once, it'd be best, especially if you got a broken leg or your face is all smashed from hitting the tree or whatever.
So that information is important. Also, is it a climbable tree? Is it a dead snag? You've seen a couple out there?
Yeah.
The complexity of a dead snag?
Yeah, I'd say stay away from those things when you're flying. Those things are they creep me out bad. We're probably both going to age 200 years.
What's a dead snag? Dead tree. Oh,
There's like a big white one right over there.
That's right.
Right in the middle.
So
Have you done a rescue? Have you helped somebody else do a self-rescue?
A self-rescue.
Yeah.
Usually by the time they've taken care of it, I'm just going up to get the gear. Like Rishi, he did that. He did the self-rescue, and basically all I was left with was all the junk he self-rescued with. I had to get it out the tree along with the other stuff. But it helped because I think I lowered his gear on his self-rescue gear, so
Yeah.
it kept me kind of
So there's a whole procedure out there and the equipment you need in order to do self-rescue.
Yeah.
And it'll save you hours for sure if you have that skill set.
Maybe if you're like 20 feet up.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to do a self-rescue from 100 feet up, but.
Even if you are, if you're observing, you're there assisting, and to have that information, it's a dead snag, just as he mentioned. That kind of thing might equip him better. It's a huge tree. Do we have an injury and so forth? So there you go. That's
And some other places, the trees are full of root rot too, and, so it's just, you know, sometimes you can land in a perfectly healthy looking tree, but it's gutted on the inside and the roots are rotted, and so, yeah, it's just, yeah, we just gotta try to get it done as smooth as possible and get home.
Is there any, other than not avoiding the dead snags, is there anything else you'd suggest if you have any control as you go into the trees about what to aim for and not aim for?
I'd say, you're basically gonna be sparring with a huge, very hard thing that, you know, just try not to slam into them, cause like people who slam into them get broken legs and ribs and ripped, you know, get cut up and stuff, so like, well, this guy, he's just gonna.
That's
land
Rishi.
wherever he's gonna land, yeah, but, yeah.
I imagine you generally are not gonna have a whole lot to say about where you're gonna put in.
Yeah.
So, under reserve, you don't have much to say, and with paragliders, I imagine you're generally fighting to, see if you can't just dance through the trees until it gives you, maybe to let you go or not, and get to make your glide. So,
Does he collapse here?
uh,
this one?
I don't think so. I just typed in Rishi so I could get that descent there. So with the reserve, and now it's moved on to the next. So there you go. Good, Pete. Well, that's it. I mean, I just wanted to see if we could pull anything from you that was of value. This is the guy we call, and that landing in a tree is no small matter. For me, it's just another one of those things that is kind of that deep water in running this show, where you guys are out there flying, you know, in airbags and all kinds of airflow, and that's a little bit what we're going to talk about here today. But the consequence of landing in those trees really necessitates somebody like Pete to come get you. There are some old wives' tales there where, you know, you'd have a 100 yards of dental floss in a big heavy bolt, and I carried one, a nut, and you'd carry it in your pocket where you could pull it out and lower it down, and maybe you could get a tool or some water while we're waiting, or a rope or something like that. But frankly, if I lit into a tree, and I have to say I haven't, I want somebody like Pete to come tend to it. You know, even the trees climbing down. There are stories of some guys coming down, and maybe it was this big where they were in, and by the time they get, to 100 feet off the ground, depending on how big it is, or 40 feet off the ground, it's not doable. And there you'd be just holding on with your fingernails, taking all the damage, sliding down it. So
Most people walk away without a scratch.
That's it.
You know?
Yeah.
But when they get hurt pretty good.
There you go. So, good. So I'll go to, well, you haven't seen this one, Pete. We didn't have to call you. But here's Leo. There you go. Leo, do you have comment as we pull this one up? Comment.
I was lucky enough hang on to
Lucky enough is right. I am amazed at how falling 100+ feet, going straight down, no dip, 3-inch rip on his glider, no injury to the pilot is again 90+% of the case.
I think with most of these recoveries I do on the wings, most of them don't get messed up either. I messed up 2 wings that I know of that I just deliberately, it was either me or the wing. So
Right.
it was the wing, but usually I can pick them out pretty well.
Do you unhook the quick links?
Yeah, the speed bar thingy and.
Well, and all the quick links.
And do you unhook the links up
Usually
here?
take the speed bar things off and then just take these off. But I got this harness thingy where I snap it in here, and it's a thing across here, and I have them tied in before I do anything with it.
Well, he's talking about to extract the wing.
Oh,
do you
yeah.
undo these little rapid links so that the
Uh,
suspension lines are all free?
No, usually just try to get it off of the harness.
So I've done a couple of extractions where taking those links off really liberated the lines, and you could just almost just drag the wing right out.
Yeah.
No gathering of,
Oh, yeah,
loops
yeah.
and all that crap. It just you can literally almost just stand there and drag the wing out of the
Yeah.
tree. It's those things that kind of create this big giant loop that always gets snagged on the branches and stuff. And it's, I know the newer guys are gonna be afraid of undoing that stuff, but the reality is putting it all back together is really pretty
How big
straightforward.
of a,
Yeah.
cause that was almost a
Yeah,
180.
I don't usually worry about that when I usually get the
It was
call,
like
my
70, yeah,
stress
now
is
it is.
already running, so just getting the human down is just a matter, just getting these loose.
But it wasn't a turn. He
Yeah.
was looking at trees.
Taking all
so
the
we can
junk
see.
out,
But we'll go deeper into that.
Whatever it is
Um,
in this scenario.
Good. Well, Leo, why don't you come on over here and sit in this harness with the expectation of hucking this. We're not gonna. There's a reserve in here, and we're gonna just toss this out. And so we're kind of suggesting that if at least you guys see how it comes out, arms through.
So what was it that caused that collapse? The wind just,
Okay.
all
Well.
the air went out the wing? or what?
Because Pete's trying to get out of here, we'll push this one a little bit here. So we did have some northeast wind, and we can go look at some of the other videos from the day. But we'll see the lines go. There you go. There's the glider with relatively tensioned lines. It didn't really surge and give warning to this collapse. You see the lines going light on the right, and it takes the collapse and turns them. And I'm going to suggest that it's probably recovered by there. And now though the glider had, you see the lines are all tight, but the direction had changed. If we go to the day, that was, let's see, that was,
There's another factor that accelerated that turn in that once he lost half the wing, now the wing's loaded with all your weight with half the surface area. And that's going to accelerate everything. If you're in a turn, it's going to accelerate that turn. If you're going straight, you're going to go straight faster. Whatever you're doing, you're going to do it a lot faster because you have you have twice the wing loading.
yeah, once it was engaged in the turn. So now, Pete, I'm up for, I was going to let you get on to Puyallup, but if you want to hang, then I'll expand. I'll expand this some more.
Okay. No, I got it.
Anyways, thank you, Pete, and his trusty steed, Brittany, who will come for you. Thank you, Pete. Pete, how many flights do you have to your name?
137.
So there you go. And he's got more landings in that gas line cut than anybody. And know that Pete is hugely responsible for a lot of the safety measures that are transparent to you. The cutting in that pipeline, big Pete. Your access to getting through some big maples that are not in our driveway tree line, where you can sneak through. Cutting the big fir that's on your turn to base and end. It's innumerable. And by the way, you need to be hired to replace the tall south windsock if you're up to that, but we have the windsocks all need to go. Anyways, thank you, Pete. We're much indebted there.
All right, yeah.
All right, there you go. And if you need tree work to be done, it's Pete, You're slammed though right now. You've got a lot of work.
Yeah.
Busy season.
You got tree work? All right, Gordon Grice. All right, good. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. All right, so guys, so we got Leo in front of us here now to kind of look at what we got. So you were asking, well, what caused it? And we're certainly going to say there was some east out there. Right now, we're looking at the nature of the day and of the moment. So Leo launched, within the hour here, and we get to watch and see how the gliders were getting pitched around or not. So let's just take a little look at this, at what we have. There's, I think, Ethan's like 5 or so. Good launch form, torpedo, and now we're kind of watching to see how much action the glider takes from the wind that was crossing from the right. You can see that it's got a gentle sinky nature to it, I think in about 5 or 8 seconds there was a little burble that we kind of saw that people were taking, and there it is, just a little bit. This is relatively soft east conditions. Sometimes it's a wild ride, and it's hard pendulums, and it's down and up and around, and this was really quite innocuous compared to what we're used to seeing on some of the rowdy days that have a lot of penalty. When I'm getting up to bat, especially when I'm 1 or 2 out, I'm watching to see what the guys before me are doing on any affair. It's kind of what I imagine, when the penguins are jumping in the water, the smart others watch and see if there's blood in the water, you know what I mean? If there's some kind of predator out there. And the same thing happens here. You want to watch and see if there's something nasty or something that you can benefit from. There's a big hole, a sink over there, or the sink is everywhere, and you wait, or you're watching to see if a glider's coming up and for the conditions. You're watching to see how are the gliders getting treated off of launch. And right now we're looking to see what was the effects to the gliders as they took off in general. And then Leo will take his hit when we go. So you can see the gliders are kind of trying to rotate a little bit to the right. They're not in upwelling air that's kind of supportive, but you guys know that when you take off on your basic day, generally speaking, it's on a flatter glide, holding out level there, and okay, well, these aren't great conditions, but these appear to be launchable. And now here we are at Leo's. And he takes that hit, and off he goes.
Almost saved it. Just earlier in the day.
It's all pretty much the same round, right? Okay, it's all. But we were experiencing a right cross, but you just saw a bunch of gliders that took off and did all right. The bottom line is you need to look where you're going and maintain that direction. The best analogy that I have is you're driving down the highway doing 60 miles an hour. You take a right front flat. The car starts to veer, and you're immediately on it. You're doing that already, just on minor adjustments. If you don't make the adjustment, maybe there's that rumble strip, and you hear it, and you make the adjustment. But otherwise, you're constantly making small adjustments. I don't let my glider just turn 8 or 10 degrees off to one side. I'm on it. I know where I'm going to go, and I know that every little, as I'm traveling, every little turn is really quite calculated because the paraglider is so inefficient. Know that for as little as I fly, when I do fly, I'm competitive. I want to get up. I want to show that I still have a little game. And I'm not going to just cruise here and there and make a mistake and be on the ground while people with less experience are skying out. That's the big picture. So an examination of fluid dynamics around Tiger becomes real important for your overall wins. But right now we're just looking at this little one here with Leo, where he's traveling. The glider goes soft on the right and his body starts to swing. And your job should be, without having to assess and analyze, I'm going that way. And you make that correction. That's the bottom line. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say that glider was broken 50% at the leading edge. And that's commonly the way a glider closes. 50 at the leading edge, 30 at the trailing end. It's a diagonal cross like that. And when they test the gliders over water, they reach up, they take that front riser, and they pull it down so the glider breaks like this. And they video it. the guy who manufactured the glider, the guy who paid $3,000 or $4,000 for each set of testing on each size, wants to see that it was tested like that and not like that, but like this. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think now it's hands off, no pilot input. It'll turn 45 degrees and should recover. Now in this case here, something hit the glider. We're going to assume that there's a hole of air, you know, where the glider, you know, I imagine in my head that it's got a sinkhole over there. So not only did he take the hit, and I think without response to help it, the glider rotates. I think it recovers. It's got its it's already, now it's banked. It's falling into a hole, and it's got a little momentum, so it turns. You asked, was it a 180-degree turn? I think that it was. I think that it was. I think it did 90 degrees, and the test is done over water
In calm condition.
in very laminar, smooth conditions. Don't know how calm it is, but it should be smooth. And so that doesn't factor in those elements that we were talking about, having a big old hole that, you know, big old hole here in the air. And I'm going to suggest, I see the lines tightening up here, and now he's you know, 120 degrees or so, say, off of that lake. And I think the glider's recovered and surging forward. Well, probably surged forward. That camera is moving as well. Now, Gordon, in his day, would be used to putting his glider out like this and running some major spiral dives, and we can broach that in a little bit. And he can tell you about going in and coming out, exiting maneuvers in a way that I could not speak for first person. But anyway, so here we go, and now the glider is clearly recovered. We got a little glimpse of that tip, and you can see there it is, healthy and flying. But now, in Leo's case, he has a wall of trees. We can see this tree disappear, and as you said, you had to scoot between some trees, and there wasn't much room at this point to find his way out of there. Okay?
Yeah, the left brake was caught by that tree. So yeah.
All right. So now, and he's going to catch the trees here and go in.
Yeah.
I'm always so impressed with how paragliding amidst 150-foot trees. Look at how high and tall that glider came straight down, and how well we do. How well we do coming down through there. I did come down through the trees probably 15 years ago, and lit straight down, gathered up myself, and come up. That is very fortunate around here. I don't really have an explanation. There's enough fabric hanging out there. Your glider really didn't even get ripped up, and you would think that the drag of your glider being out there, you know, taking some damage so you don't, would be a big advantage. But somehow you made it through that, all of that, and did well. Thoughts?
Were you reaching out for branches to try and break your fall at all, or?
Yeah, when I reached the branches, I remember when the left riser, the left brake line was caught by the tree. I lose my balance, and then I cannot do anything. I just fall with the glider and I'm directly on the ground.
What was your body position when you hit the ground?
It should be like this.
So you landed straight on your protection.
On my butt.
Did a bunch of branches come down on you afterwards too, shower down on you from or did they all hit the same time?
Okay.
Hard to
So,
remember probably, huh?
I want to add one thing. And this is site specific. When you do want to take the chance of launching, knowing that there's a little bit of an easterly flow, and we all do it. A couple of things. First of all, look at the windsock before you pull up. Take one last look at the windsock and see if it's hard east, because a lot of times it's mellow right on launch. The tails are moving just barely, barely east, and you look at the windsock and it'll be a hard east. So I've made that mistake of not looking at the windsock right before I launched on a tandem, and I thought we were in deep stall when we got off the ground. We were flying away. We got away. We managed to get out of there, but it just felt like the wing wasn't flying at all. And if I had taken one last look right before I launched, I would have seen that east and not launched. But the other thing is, we'll often find that if you turn left immediately, as soon as you're stable in your harness, go towards the last chance ridge. If everybody knows what that is, it's the ridge to your left that drops down right into the LZ. That last chance ridge often is producing a nice little thermal. The easterly flow is ducking in underneath that warm air coming off the LZ, and you'll often get out there, and maybe you won't gain 500 feet, but you might gain a couple 100 feet or 200 feet. But in any case, you're getting away from the mechanical issues that you're going to get due to that easterly flow coming through the saddle and wrapping around the king dome, and that's what you want to get away from. So I think if we all go that way, it's going to be you're going to have a lot more success in those easterly flows.
So he's talking about the wind coming through the saddle here, and that's what we had. And you can see these are friendly. There's a little pitch back and surge forward and so forth. And that's, that's mild. That's milder east. That's more east effect than what we had on Leo's day. And here's a good view of that windsock. You can see that's fairly aggressive east. I find that I'm more observing the pilots that are launching off more than the windsock. You look at that windsock, and it's good to know, like Gordon says, but if it's a friendly east, and you want to fly down and not drive down, then I'm watching each glider taking off. And your recipe should be that on every time you go up. When you're next up, you're watching to see what that glider. I stop whatever I'm doing because I want to see what that person's going through for good or bad. Matter of fact, I have a routine, which I think is worthy of saying. When I'm going up to fly, especially midday, and it's aggressive, well, of course, you're watching all the way from the time you were home looking at the weather 3 days ago until you get to, you're driving to the site and you're kind of looking at your things and your markers and flags. For me, getting around to that back gate, and I'm looking to see how the trees are doing on the back side, and if they're thrashing around, I'm kind of wilting a little bit. And when you get up to launch, I actually steel myself. I kind of get my stuff and I walk out like so, and I'm actually not looking around too much, and I'm getting my mind together. And I'll take a glance or two and see, who's getting up and this and that, and if I'm feeling, anxiety about the conditions, I have a process, which how much I'm looking out there, and then sometimes I just steel myself to the business. But as I get my glider ready, I kind of march down there, and it's serious. And I get really serious once I'm hooking in. There's a point there where I'm not even going to look at the conditions for a minute or so before, and I hook my stuff in, and then once I'm kind of ready, I really periscope up, and I say, all right, now I'm looking, I'm watching. I do stop to see each glider that's launching, because they're going through the gauntlet of rotating that glider up. How much are they having to walk up the hill? Because that'll determine where I'm going to locate myself on the hill. The stronger it is, the lower I'm going to be on the hill. If I know that I've got to walk up the hill, I'm going to get down even below the lip so that I'm up, walking up the hill. But my message to you is, I've kind of developed a very phased approach how I'm going to emotionally go forward and take, and at the points where I'm really kind of watching to see what is going on, so that I can figure, okay, that's what I'm going to have to handle. And you're doing that from a defensive standpoint, as well as taking advantage of the conditions. As we started to touch, who's going up, who's going down, is it overall sink? is the sun going behind the clouds? You know what I mean? And I wait 5 minutes, I'll do better, you know, and launch when it's come out and cooked for a couple of minutes. And all those things kind of stand then too when you're out in the air. Anyway, so speaking about east, that's a fair east, and it's sitting out there. It looks like 4 to 7 mile an hour, and this glider carries out, and it pendulums and gives a little bit of grief, but it's not that bad. When the glider's penduluming around like that, for me, I don't look at my glider. I generally am just feeling like a spider. Go ahead and take these breaks. Matter of fact, and Leo, and go ahead and put the wrap on. And as best I could see during your moment, you had a wrap on. All right?
Yeah.
And it looked like you were holding your risers. Now, if you're using the risers as a guide, that's okay. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you were holding the risers. But if you hold the risers and you're not getting the feedback from the glider to react to it, you have deficited yourself from actively flying your glider. So you want to be able to feel the tension of the glider. So as if the glider surges back, you're going to go forward. Your back's a little bit back. This is all going to tighten up, and it's going to kind of want to lift your hand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if the glider surges forward, then it's going to go loose, and that's where you're susceptible to closure, right? And your reaction is to pick up the slack and try to keep that glider overhead. When you go forward and the glider pitches back, you are the glider is it's virtually impervious to closure. Okay? But when it pendulums forward and it goes unbridled and it goes forward, that's when it doesn't take much to collapse the glider. And this is where you are to react to the glider. In your case, when this side went, your job immediately is to touch that brake. That's right, if you can lean, great too, but you've got the brake in hand, and the least amount, if you put in a little bit of input, that glider it wants to recover. The air is going into the leading edge, and it will cross-port the air over to the other side and open it up. That's the main message of this get-together today. My concern for asymmetricals, and that you guys are prepared to defend yourself, because it ain't a movie. So there it goes, and your job is to have the recognition and be the active pilot that has some self-preservation, and you activate that, and you go, like driving your car, you move just a few degrees off your lane, and you make that adjustment. Thoughts? Questions? That's the finger snap, you know what I mean, that it starts with each of you when you made the first phone call, and I said it's expensive, it's dangerous, and it's the no snowflake zone.
Can I ask a question while we've got this screenshot up? This is the part that, having not experienced this, that seems the strangest to me, because right at the moment when you need to weight shift, you've lost that which you would push against to achieve that weight shift, right? So it just seems, I'm just wondering how that felt at the moment. Did you feel like you could have weight shifted to the other direction
No,
at that time?
at that moment, I didn't have that experience before.
Yeah.
So at that moment, my mind is blank. I don't think about anything.
Sure.
So I let the glider take me where he wants me. The glider wants me to take.
Auto
So,
rotation?
yeah, So at that moment, I should give some input on the left brake,
Yeah,
and I
weight
will shift to the left.
Yeah. Hard to do though when you've got nothing to push against.
Well, the left side's still loaded.
Yeah,
The
okay.
left side,
But you're trying to climb
it's still
uphill,
loaded,
right?
so you can lean into that left
Yeah,
side.
okay. You've done this at SIV, right, Bryce?
Yep.
How did it feel?
I love that experience, but I would hate it next to a tree.
Yeah, but you had no
But
problem.
you practice pulling down the collapse and weight shifting and steering against it and
When you-
maintaining that directional heading.
When you know it's coming. Right?
Yeah, well, but I mean, don't you also feel that? You can feel that weight, you can feel that
Yeah, sure.
coming at, I don't think I've taken out more than a 30% collapse
I know.
ever.
Yeah.
I just
Of
look
course, I
at how
haven't
fast
flown
all
that
this
much.
happens.
So look,
Yeah.
it's a new game, and that's part of the wake up. That's what I'm talking about, the wake up, that you're not just in a movie watching this. And basically what he said was that his mind went blank, and I get that phrase, deer in the lights. And so, and you spoke out weight shift. And look, as spoken at the last Chalk Talk, you have the brake in hand.
Yeah, sure.
Use the brake and get on it before it accelerates.
Yeah.
We had our Chalk Talk last night, and I smile at this one because when Mitch said he wanted to speak of the virtues of weight shifting for all the reason of, your glider's heavily loaded and when you go to, say, half a wing and that you might spin the glider. We're dealing with new people. How many of you have had a 50% closure? 1, 2 out of a dozen here. Mitch had the aha moment where he said, Mitch, the Leo affair was exactly the reason why I am imploring you guys to use this simple little brake that's in hand as your basic 101. If you take a hit, use the brake. Leo and a bunch of other people before him and a bunch of people after him are hit with this new thing that's going, and his mind went blank and didn't really have a response, and doing the weight shift thing, which would be a higher level maneuver, and I understand the reasons that Mitch spoke, that our dear friend Kirk Lewis experienced that, where he overbroke and the glider stalled and turned and just dropped him straight down. But you guys are flying ENA gliders, you got lots of brake throw, and I don't think you're going to spin your glider. And in this case, the consequence of going blank or having to say, oh, I'm falling off this way, I'm going to weight shift that way, you have the brake in your hand. So it's frequently said, weight shift, but you're looking to just get through the basic moments and you got the brake in hand. So try to wake yourself up. It is an airbag. That's the point that from the very beginning, this is very convenient to fly. To be out in space and experience your dream. But the reality is to have this benefit, to be able to put this into your pocket and enjoy the portability and this 4-minute, setup and this 4-minute put away, there are some issues. And that's that it doesn't take, it is just an airbag. Michael Jensen's speak on the Telegram saying, but it's an ENA.
Other side.
Is it? It's not supposed to do that. No. It can do it. Its recovery is in 45 degrees with no pilot input. This is all it is. So there you go. So wake up and wake up your buddies and that's the finger snap. So that you develop some movement to handle all kinds of things that your glider gets into.
Hey Peter, I saw your collapse and it looked like his. Do you have any recollection or thoughts after that?
For mine, it felt a lot quicker than that looked. And I just went around 180 degrees and kept flying 180 degrees in the other direction. I was preparing for a right turn, and I kind of eased up on my left brake a little bit before my right turn. And just then I got too close to that ridge there up on that side, and it just like folded the left side of my wing in half. So I think for me, I shouldn't have should have not used up as much on my left brake or my right brake.
Collapses. That's Patrick Carter on a kind of a nasty east cross day, blowing kind of strong. The glider recovers, and those are basically frontals there. But you see the glider's doing quite a bit of help for him. I think we have Amanda's collapse on here. Hang on here.
Close to the ground is not.
And interestingly, I think this is what I think this is a lot of what Leo's collapse looked like. That's a fair size hit. That's 40, 50%. That's 50%. And the glider, look at that. It turns, and that's about where Leo was. Right there, glider recovered and looks like 100+ degrees. Now he's got a full wing, but it's banked. Except Leo had the trees, there that he was kind of trapped. And she smartly takes it all. She found that she couldn't make the left turn, and so she takes it all the way around and she lands it on her feet. Okay. And I would say that her recipe there was a good one. I'll put the volume on, and at the get-go, I am asking her to bring it around left, and she realizes that left, brake left, bring it around, that's it, finish the turn, into the wind to the right, that's it. That was a good decision on her part. It's viable if you have the space. That's it, good for you, calm and cool, that's it, and brake, good for you.
Can we watch Matt's?
I'm sorry?
Can we watch Matt's?
You just like to watch me.
Did you see that up here? I don't know what you're talking about. Do we have one that's on here?
We should.
This should be in there somewhere.
Hey, look, you can just like.
All right.
Matt, you-
There you go. And that's bigger than 50. That's very fortunate. Here we go.
Yeah, I was struggling to understand that one.
Yeah. So I'm sending, by the way, Santa Croce and I had a conversation yesterday, and I'm sending him all of these Yeti collapses, and says he's very interested. They do a lot of tuning, and so we're kind of having a conversation. What's going on here that we're seeing.
Is that like 70%?
That looks about that. That's pretty big. And look at it surge forward. And Matt was very fortunate here that because he takes that frontally.
I feel like you're delighted 3 feet in the swamp.
That's like 5 feet away from a broken ankle.
You got anything to add to all that? So those are some new ones for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the only thing I would add, and I appreciate what Marc is trying to get across, and that is that left turn, that left brake is essential. And, but I know we're all taught as well, especially in this SIB clinic, is that you want to put in that left brake, but you want to put in enough that keeps you from going into the trees. Now, since it is an A wing, as soon as you put that brake input in, the right side's going to try to start to open again. It's already on its way to open again. And so to Marc's point, he's saying, go ahead and get on, because by the time you could actually spin it, the right side's gonna be open again and you'll be flying, because it's an E and A.
Yeah, I don't think you're gonna spin an A though. I mean, you could go full arm down. I've never seen one spin like this.
But heavily loaded, I don't know. I mean, if you got half the wing on, now you're.
Well, do something, and the brake is in your hand, and you should be making nano adjustments all through your flight with that. So there's the Did you have more on that? Nope. Yeah, and then if you can get that weight shift in, of course, but now you've seen a couple of avenues there. If the glider does take it around and you have the room, it's okay to take it around. You know, in your overwater clinics, at least the ones that I've been with Santa Croce and spend some number of years, but they'd have you do asymmetricals, you know, just reach up and pull the riser down and you know, suggesting you get on one and do 6 toes, not 2, but do 6 and leapfrog your progress with each one. But you'd reach up and you'd pull down that riser and collapse it, and then they often have you do speed bar and get that thing accelerated, do a couple of goes where you've got that glider coming forward, and then pull that front riser to get an accelerated asymmetrical collapse. You try then to brake and lean, or lean and brake and straighten it out. Then your facilitator might have you do the accelerated collapse and then take it all the way around, and you get to find out how friendly it is. Okay, and that's what you saw better with Amanda's collapse. That going into it, especially with an A, is not a horrible thing. Okay, the thing wants to recover, and but we don't want it to wind up. And your higher rated gliders can wind up. And now you are quite experienced with nosing down a paraglider and have it enter a spiral. What about the nature of a locked spiral? If you, how does that progression go where you're flying along, you induce them with a full wing, and found yourself, you know, doing this because you liked it, versus, you can speak about that, versus this, and then it progresses and it really winds up to a problem.
Yeah, so, you know, once you fully banked up a spiral, what you'll notice, kind of like a sat, that the wing will start to pitch forward and be pointing right at the ground. So if you're in a full, highly accelerated spiral, the wing is pointed at the ground. And if you're whipping that spiral, you can imagine that now the wing has got 3, maybe 4x the original weight it's rated for. So it's super heavily loaded. Well, what happens when you super heavily load a wing?
Speeds up.
It goes really fucking fast, right?
Put it down fast.
But now you're going down fast this way. Well, if you're getting sucked into a cumulus-nimbus cloud, that can be a really, really life-saving thing. But if you're 500 feet above the king dome, it can be a really, really, really deadly thing. And what happens is, because of the speed, all of that brake input that you were normally used to when you're flying flat and straight at 20 miles an hour goes away. Nothing's happening. You're just still whipping. The snot's coming out of your nose. You're going sideways at 50 miles an hour, and you're going down at 30 miles an hour. And you're completely, the wing was not designed to be controlled at those speeds, and so you lose control. It's all over until you really, really get super aggressive. And I think what they're teaching at the clinics today, it's not the way I got out of it when I did it. I was in a yellow wing, and Marc's student was on a yellow wing. What was his name?
Hooter.
Skydog's dad.
Oh, right.
Gary.
Wilson.
Gary had same color wing, different model, same brand. I'm in this locked in, my first and probably only super locked in spiral where I was useless, and I was just a few hundred feet above the king dome. And Marc goes, "Gary, throw your reserve, throw your reserve, throw your reserve." Gary's going, "What? Why do I need to throw my reserve?" In the meantime, I'm literally seconds away from just exploding into the trees, just hitting the trees at 50 miles an hour. And I did a sat exit, so I just slammed the outside brake. Because that was the way I got out. And luckily I'd already been doing some sats, so I knew how to get out of the sat, and it worked, and I recovered. But I didn't have.
What is a sat?
Oh, sat. So that's a aerobatics maneuver. I'll explain that in a minute when we finish the concept of getting out of the locked-in spiral. Because a sat's an advanced maneuver, you got to go do 2 or 3 clinics before you start doing that. but if you were to get into a locked in, and you guys shouldn't be banking up spirals to the point where it gets locked in, but the way you do it is anything but what you've been doing, which is now what they're teaching is take a couple of wraps, pull as hard as you can. You're in this locked in spiral. You're getting close to blacking out because you're in such high G's. Pull as hard as you can. That will slow your descent this way, and then that will change the flying characteristics of the wing. The spiral will slow down. Things will start to recover, and then you'll eventually be able to steer out of it. And you also know that you're going to come out of this thing probably with a lot of energy, and you're going to surge. When you come out, you're going to surge, and you may even take a frontal on that surge if it's a big enough surge. But that's better than hitting the trees at 50 miles an hour. So you've gotten to the point where the wing is now, at least it's oriented in the direction that it's supposed to fly.
So, question to you, Gordon: if you did find yourself wound up turning, that would be my thought, to try to reinitialize things by hitting the brakes,
But
hard wound up.
You got to have 1-2 wraps,
Right.
Because normal brake travel is useless at that point.
And so, but you're actually bringing it back like this.
Well,
if
the
if
first
your
thing,
nose down.
if you got both brakes, you're slowing it down. All you're doing is slowing in this direction. You're slowing that, and then that's going to be slowing down the G-forces. You're not going to be whipping as hard as you were. And then once you get that slow enough where now your brake input's going to work for you, then you want to then start to bring it out of the turn of the spiral, and get back level again.
So I think your takeaway is that there's some advanced situations that you can get into, but this is with ENB or DHV2 gliders, right?
I think any glider will do it.
Right.
Any glider will do it.
So, at this moment, you guys are all, you're anywhere from, 7 flights. Gary, I think you're our junior pilot here, and some of you guys got a couple of hundred now. That an overwater clinic will open you up to quite a bit. In the meantime, though, you're looking to fly this thing straight and level and develop some defensive skills so that you're not a deer in the lights.
Who's running clinics here? Near here?
There's a couple of names out there.
There's some good ones in Northern California I'm looking at next
There you
week.
go. There you go. You'll find them.
What's important too is when you start talking about going to a clinic, I wouldn't get wrapped around the axle as to where to go. It's more important to go than it is to where to go. You could argue that Maddie's good, or that Ganushia's good, or Chris is good, so I shouldn't go see Ganushia. Well, you should just go. Just go get a clinic. And he said do 6 toes. I say do 12 toes in 3 days. Do 4 a day, and that's that. You'll come back a new person.
Get into a smaller class, see if it can be just 3 or 4 people on the beach, as opposed to having to wait a long time. And I think, and if it's a person that you've checked out and everybody's kind of nodding and saying that guy's got experience, then so be it. But so the impressive part there was Leo kind of being caught off guard that this could happen, and ended up going for the ride. So that's the point for you guys to be on. You're flying at a nano level there. You're making constant adjustments, and your tactics, it's not just for the closure. It's kind of thinking of every move. If we pulled out that model of Tiger, I'm thinking about with my altitude, which way is the wind coming? How's my thermal floating? How are the clouds developing? There's the Venturi of the West Valley. I'd like to acquire one. I want to get out. There's all kinds of things that I could speak. There's Gordon over there climbing. There's a low glider coming up. Do I take that guy higher? No, I want to get over the... There's all kinds of nano thought, and you want to be there. But your conduct with the brakes, with the hands, and what's going on within this little capsule right here. How do you wake up so that you don't allow that to happen? And it is an airbag, and it's gonna happen. The more experience you get, the less it'll happen. I didn't really see a telltale that gave a forewarning that you were going to take that hit. You were actually kind of traveling along sweetly enough, and then all of a sudden, boom, it went. And it can be that way. Sometimes it'll let you know. It'll kind of pop back a little bit, or ruffle, and then you take the hit. Sometimes you're flying along and the glider just jumps forward, and whoa! But you got a reaction to it, you know. And hopefully then, you know, with experience, as the glider moves, you have a more and more thoughtful reaction that is commensurate with the energy that the glider has, so you don't enter into a cascade of events such that you overbrake and then it comes forward, or as Gordon was concerned, you take a hit, it starts to turn, and you overbrake, and to the point where it gives you another issue. But you guys are flying E&A gliders, and they should give you a lot of tolerance. That I'm not so concerned about.
Well, I'm old school, and Mark suggested that you could use the risers as guides. I'm old school. I say don't put your hands on the risers.
Yeah.
And the reason is because you're going to get feedback immediately that something's happening, and you're going to get that feedback when you have tension on the brakes. And you're going to get it in the brakes, and you're going to get it in your hips. You're going to get that feedback right away. So if you're attached, I mean, certainly don't grab the risers, right? I mean, if you grab the risers, you're screwed. You're completely disconnecting yourself from the wing. You can't get any input from what the wing's going. The only place you get is in your hips, but your hands wouldn't feel a thing. So, tension on the brakes so that you're getting feedback from the wing. When the wing starts to go, you can let your hips and your hands drop to help, if not eliminate it, then you can eliminate it. You can prevent it from going if you get on it fast enough. If the feedback is quick enough, your feedback is quick enough, you can prevent it from going. But even if you don't go, even if it does go, you still have reduced the magnitude. Instead of a 50%, or maybe you're going to get a 30%, in which case you're going to turn 10 degrees. You're not coming anywhere near the trees, and you're not going to build up. The other thing that got him was that since he was 50% asymmetric, he was double the wing loading, and that created this big pendulum effect. And now he's kind of pointing at the ground, and now he's got a surge, and that surge helped open that wing up. But now he's got this big surge, and he doesn't know how to deal with all of it. It's just too much. It's overload.
So when you get off launch, then generally in the first 5 seconds, I'm kind of looking for you to take that wrap on the brakes to better connect you for exactly this kind of rapport with the glider there, so it talks to you. Yes, I definitely encourage you guys to be free of the risers. And when I was asking about, are you holding the risers and using them guide, again, you're trying to progress going from never flying a paraglider to being a competent pilot that you can endure some of these things. So that's a good posture. All right, I think we beat that one up enough. Does anybody have a question there? No?
In general or on that topic?
Go ahead.
In general, okay, so I know there's a few people trying to step up to some higher B gliders. Do you have any advice on that?
Well, let's see here. Leo, I'm going to have you pull that reserve out. I'm just checking my list here as to what we got next here. So look, if you got twisted up, if you find yourself getting twisted up, I just as far as basic reactions off launch, you want to keep your hands inside. Let's see here, riser, twist. Let's see what this will bring back. Eventually this is going to happen. You turn the wrong way, you set up the wrong way. Let's see if we get some nice examples here. Twist on launch Q1. Let's see how this one goes. All right, glider gets launched. She's now got a twist. She keeps her hands inside. Good for her. And it unwinds. So anyways, you will get into this situation. Really, you want to keep your hands in. You don't want to guess and have your hands out, okay? Give the glider a chance. When you launch, chances are the glider is going to stay on heading. But if you guess wrong, you could start that glider turning, and you'll be headed for the tree. So he's twisted up. Can he keep his hands in? He does. Good, and it unwinds. So that's where you want to be. All right. There's some examples, I think, of other people not here. This one is a loser. This one's going to go into the trees. He's twisted. He's going to guess. The left hand comes down and takes it towards the trees.
Is that Matthias?
No, that's Aaron Hinckley.
Okay.
All right, so there you go. There's probably some other white, blue. Look up. Here's another one. Let's see what happens here.
Looks good. Looks good. Coming up 2 breaks now, and into it left. You can take it. You can.
She's
All
twisting.
right, Kara, you're all wound up. You just pull your hands in. You're just going to go into the trees, Kara. Cover up, cover up, cover up, cover up.
All right, we got a million of them, but that, anyways, that.
That was our car?
Huh?
That was Kara? Bond car?
No.
I'm sorry, I missed that. So we're pulling our hands in?
Yep.
In what?
So that you don't errantly put in a turn and it's going to take you offline. So right now that glider is going to fly straight.
Keep your hands in.
You don't want to guess and pull the wrong brake. Now I've taken most of you to, to reaching up and steering the glider with the brake line above the pulleys. You know, it's these kinds of situations where, it's crossed up, you don't know which one to go with, and if you have the moment, you can steer the glider with the brakes or, the rear riser, whatever makes sense where you have some clarity on how to get the glider. Oh, there, look, there's Lon. That's, is that, hang on there. That is not her, but hang on here. But there's an example. Someone takes off, and yep, there you go. But you see very clearly, this guy astutely reaches up, grabs the brake line to steer it, to keep him from going this way and to go that. You get the point? That's a good example. All right. So
It looks like he's in a thermal too.
yeah, and he's in a thermal. All right. There you go. So good one.
Well,
Great example. All right. So reserve throw. Let's just we want to extract a reserve out of that harness. Let's go take a look at this old Seattle paragliding vignette. We do have a zip line out here, and if we had a rigger out here, somebody wants to repack, we can run this thing. Lon really hates our zip line. She thinks that we could lose the ranch on it, and I get it. So the process that you're seeing there is the reach down to your reserve handle. It'd be nice if you kind of knew what your pin's like, but generally speaking, a little thump to free it of its loops. It's a toss out, releasing the, throwing it out kind of towards the horizon, out and back, I think is probably what you'd like. And then backstroking your hand such that you can find the bridle and make sure that the elastics and all pop on the diaper. If it doesn't open up, you can pull it back in and try to throw it again, or make sure it gets deployed. You're looking at a midair there. You're looking at those are 20-year-old vids. The reserves are tiny. Go find that bridle if you can. And after that, then, with some dexterity, you'd either reach up to the B lines or the C lines, the C risers, and just pull them down and try to kill the flying characteristic of your glider so it doesn't downplane. If you can't get to that, pretty much grabbing one of anything and reeling it in should disfigure the glider and collapse it.
Question for you is related to that. In the book, I think it talked about if you do end up downplaning, 2 options. One is to grab line and collapse it. The other is you get it flying again and get it back overhead. And I'm wondering, is that really an option? Do you want it interfering with your reserve and all that, or? They said you could pull one of the brake lines, turn it, and get it to come back up.
Yeah, I've heard that. I haven't seen it. I've not witnessed it, but I've heard that if you put a bunch of brake input into the wing that's now flying, but it's downplaning, it's you put a bunch of brake, it'll drift back up and bump up against the reserve, and both will be stable over your head.
Okay, they
I've
can
heard that,
cohabitate with no problem.
but I haven't witnessed it.
We probably could find that on YouTube. I haven't had to throw reserve out of need. We fooled with them over water and so forth, but anyway. So
The other thing too, and I have thrown it in desperation. In fact, we have that on video. It was in Guadalajara, Ocotlán. I had a ball of nylon over my head. I was that's all I saw in the video. You see, it's actually a streamer straight out. But what I saw was a ball of nylon, and I was a new pilot. I was maybe 2 years in, and I looked at it, looked at the ground, looked at the ground, and said, "Time to throw." And I had been taught to, I'd gone through this class, right? And part of that was to look at the handle. Well, I didn't look at the handle, and my harness had several little straps. It felt like reserve handles. I was grabbing straps, not reserve handles. And then finally, I got hold of the reserve handle. I never did look at it, so I wasn't. I was taught to do it. I wasn't doing it. Got it tossed. You can see the video. The reserve comes out. 7 seconds later, it deflates because I'm on the ground. So I had a 7-second reserve run, and so without the reserve, that's what 3.5 seconds. So if you can remember in that desperate moment, or buy a harness that doesn't have straps right next to the reserve handle.
Yep, so you want to make sure that you don't have extra debris floating around your reserve handle is what he's saying, and that can happen. But so right now what I'd like to know, we're not going to throw it because I don't want to have to repack this thing. But like, for example, this speed bar here, if it's not hooked up and if it was just hanging here, it's possible for you to grab this and grab your handle, and there you are, pulling, and you're not going to get the reserve handle. You're not going to make it go. So know that having any extraneous things, straps from your stirrup and so forth. But right now what I'd like you to do is, we're not going to huck it, but I want you to give a tug and just pull it out of the tunnel. Go ahead and let's pull it out. That's it. And out. That's it. Go ahead and give her a pull. There you go. And that's as smooth and as light as it should be, and you want to toss that out and back, not into your wing. It's said to toss it in the direction of your turn, get it out to the open, and probably out and back is where you want to go. If you were in a turn like this, where you're barely, if you're helicoptering and had something, throwing it straight down. I've seen them where they just sit there and it just turns and it doesn't open up. So we're actually looking to have the wobble of the glider help open this thing up. Once that glider comes out, it's probably gonna come back like this. And I'll ask you to weather vane your hand back. That's it. Backstroke your hand. I want you to find the bridle. Go ahead and just find the bridle. Just backstroke your hand like you're swimming.
Be like this.
You can do this. Can you do this?
Go underneath it.
That's it. And find the handle. Get it on your elbow. Go ahead. There you go. Like this. Let go. Let go. Let go. Let go. I just want you to do this, and now you can find it. Okay? And now you can find it, and you can try to bring it alive. And after that, you would reach up and try to find, your B's or your C's, and just pull them down. If that doesn't work, you can find your A. Just one A riser and reel it in. If that doesn't work, you can grab one brake, but you're trying to kill the flying characteristic of your glider, of your paraglider, so it doesn't fight your reserve. There's some.
You guys get that? You understand that? What's going to happen if you don't?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody?
Here's a good example. If you don't get your main paraglider canopy out of the action, you're not getting the full value of the reserve. The glider is you're actually caught between the two, and you want this to go away so it rotates up straight overhead, and you get that nicer sink rate that it can avail to you. Let's see here if we have for you. So that's, the person hasn't done anything to kill their paragliding canopy. Let's see. Bump out of here. Let's see if we have a nicer picture of a reserve coming straight down. Hang on there. I think this one. There we go. There you go. It goes out. This is over Lake Sammamish. It's planned. And now he goes to kill his main paraglider, and you can see how the reserve rotates up overhead. Okay, is that helpful?
That would look like that one bumped up against the reserve.
There you go, nice pull on that bridle. It's good. That helpful? Okay, anything else to add to that? Gives you a little bit of an idea of what, you know, that you have.
When are we supposed to throw the sometimes when something bad happens, we try to save it, but when do we need to throw the reserve?
When you're confounded and you go, I don't think there's a way out of this. If you found yourself in a riser twist and it kept on, you know what I mean, and it's now gone to 3, and now it's 5, and now it's 7, and it's winding up, and your paraglider is turning overhead, and you're not turning it the same right, probably time to throw it. Your, I think, Frank was at 4,000 feet. Our Frank Henrique is at 4,000 feet over Duval on a nice little cross-country flight. 4,000 feet. And he said it was twisting all up, and he said, you know what, I'm just going to throw. He had lots of altitude to play with, but he didn't want to have this go any farther. So riser twist. If you had a spiral which you couldn't remedy, you know, maybe you have a knot, maybe you have a collapse with the fabric cravated and caught, and you couldn't remedy it. You know, where you go, you know what, the G's are building up, and I can't get out of this. If you have a midair, you know, you might want to throw that.
Okay.
So I'll throw up a midair here and say that if you make contact, you know, with somebody, you can wait a moment, you know, or.
A question about riser twists. I would regret asking this as soon as I preface it, but in skydiving, which riser twists happen all the time while you're waiting for your chute to open, you reach up, grab the risers, pull them apart, and bicycle kick, and that helps unwind you.
There you
Is there
go.
any good? Does that apply here at all?
Absolutely. In fact, if you're doing an SIV clinic and you're doing, you know, you're pushing the envelope, this is not something you should be doing here, but this requires muscle memory, which I'd like to talk about muscle memory at some point. But you can sense the wings. You're twisting, right? You can sense you're going into the twist, and if you have the wits about you, you can reach up and grab the risers, pull them apart, and that stops the twist. So you can prevent the twist before it happens if you're on it, if you've got the right muscle memory.
Almost every skydive I ever did had 9 twists, like 10.
Yeah.
I was spinning around and doing it, right? So,
Yeah.
of course, I was
Oftentimes, well,
3,000 feet up too. So.
we you know, our wings are not really designed to come out of that condition, and it's really hard to get that kick momentum going. And if you have 3, 4, 5 riser twists, you got a lot of turning to do. It's you know, it's pretty precarious at that. And the other thing that happens is the twists lock the brakes. So you might be flying flat and straight even with all these twists, but you can't manipulate the brakes with the brake handles. Now, if you might be able to reach above the twists and manipulate the brakes above the twists, but if you've got 2 or 3 or 4 twists in your risers, your brakes are useless.
Right. And hence some of those, you know, the rear riser, you get to assess and see if you can find your way out of it. So interestingly, in this, there was a midair between this white glider here, Parham, and this gent from Spokane. And he had damage to his glider. He was able to fly down. The Spokane pilot decided to throw immediately. And he's got a nice square reserve. And you see his paraglider is kind of flailing around. You see the oscillation by the reserve. But notice that right there, once this kind of gets out of the game, watch how this squares away the last 100 feet, how soft and straight that comes down. I mean, that's kind of pronounced, that idea of finding a happy place where your canopy is best serving you. So you might find yourself pulling the Bs, you might find yourself pulling As, but I think you're kind of trying to find a configuration that you go, this is best, where it's not moving around and it's settled in, and then you stop there. So I'll suggest that to leave yourself open to going, how can I get things so that it's doing this? If you do nothing, I showed you that example where you're really, this is down, your paraglider's downplaning and your reserve is not at full best, slowest sink rate.
I have to go meet my grandson.
Okay.
Take him home.
Very good.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Good.
See you guys.
Mark, is there any reason you can't just keep wrapping the brake over and over and over again to disable the glider?
Well, I think your glider is gonna is gonna go back. I imagine you could, but I think you would do better to, I think you would be better to try to take the,
One side first.
you can collapse your glider better than taking all of those wraps, but you can fool with it. I don't think so. Don't have that much experience with reserves. Coming free floating down under them, but if your over water clinic guy, they're doing it all the time.
So Bryce, imagine though if afterwards you land in a tree and you're hanging from your wings suspended by your wrists because you've got 10 wraps on it. Yeah.
That could be bad.
That's a good point.
Okay, knots. Anybody how many of you had a knot already? One knot. How bad was it? Not bad? Bad knot. All right.
Right in the center on the leading edge.
Uh-huh.
Couldn't steer half the wing,
Okay.
so I
You?
kept making right turns.
I can't remember having.
All right, knots.
Not an ambi turner, huh?
All the way down.
Well, I'm
right
kind of
turns.
surprised that it's so few of you can speak for knots, because that's because this kind of comes along with the territory. So let's see what we have. Flight. Let's see what we got. Ryan Mullen. Oh, okay, there's a knot. We can stop. Sebastian, knot. Flight 6. Looking at the ground. Bend over. You look good. Start to draw your hands to your shoulders. Go to single wrap to protect yourself. Very small. Okay, not
Nice
bad.
job, Sebastian. And let's turn it towards the lake.
You can
Good
just
for
see
you.
the deformation.
I like the what you did.
That's what I had, but much more pronounced.
All right, let's see if we have something more. All right, you can see that a little bit. Doesn't look like it's that much, but it's enough that this guy is not going to be able to avoid the trees. Knots.
He also
Yeah.
he doesn't have his weight shifted like all the way to the left.
And he's
Well,
flailing with both
He's got a
brakes.
little bit.
Yeah. So look, you do have a stabilo line, a line that should allow you to really gyrate the tip on your paraglider, and each of it's now everybody's got here. Would you just hold that out? There you go. So we're upside down. There's your A risers. There's your B. On this one's color coded red on the C riser. Okay, and that's the one that it's going to go straight out to the tip, and that's what you could reach up after you thump. You got the brake in hand, so you're going to thump this as hard as you can while maintaining direction away from the trees, and see if you can't clear that. Okay. Are we at noon already?
Yeah, I've got
Great.
some appointments ready.
Thank you.
See you guys.
See you.
There you go.
Good luck on the hunt.
You showing them a house? All right. Very
Hey.
good. All right, good. So look, with knots, you want to fly your glider fast. If you have a knot on one side, the options are you have the brake with which you can thump it out, you can reach up to the suspension lines that are offending and see if you can't harp pull it and pluck it and try to gyrate those that are involved. It could be a friction knot. It could be a little leaf twig. It can be really quite minor bit of debris that fouls your lines. The stabilo line, I think I've had most of you reach up and find that orange line and pull that thing down, yes? If you haven't, you should do it. It's a good tool. Gordon, have you remedied a situation with that stabilo line?
I don't recall having done that. You know, that's the first thing you do when you get
All right, in a moment, just
cravat.
move like
You're
normal.
out to
Slowly
that
break,
out to
break,
the
break,
towing
break,
clip,
break.
and you get a cravat. The first thing you do is the first thing you'll learn is reaching up and grabbing that stabilo, and you can pull it in as far as you want. You're going to create a big asymmetric if you're steering with the other brake to keep it flying straight, and you can pull the wing down, 10, 12 feet to get that cravat out. But same with the knot. You can really be pretty aggressive with that stabilo.
Here's Mark Whiteside. This was an odd one. I saw it said something was caught on a speed bar. Maybe he had a line. You can see this goofy situation here. This is not normal. This tip is pulled down quite a bit more than the other. And I think something was caught down like so. It was fouled in his
That direction, okay. Now, look up there.
So we got no idea what's going on. Let's see what this, the reaction though at first is not to be staring at your knot, but to fly the slider, get the slider away. And
You're gonna lift your left, quick! Go left, hard left, look left. There you go. Thank you. Stay left, you got a little issue on your lines. Left, look left. We're gonna get away from the hill, you have a knot. So it can fly all the way down, but you have a knot. Good for you, keep that direction.
All right, so,
Keep that direction.
from my standpoint,
Now,
trying to conduct you through, I
look
don't
up
really
there.
want to have you
Thump to
looking
the
up
right.
with
I
it
don't
until
know
you're
what's
away
going
from
on with your
terrain.
tip there, but it's not happening.
And so now that
That's it.
you
Keep
have
your direction
space
while
for
doing it.
terrain,
It's a good exercise.
now you can fool with it.
Very good. And okay. All right, relax. That's it. Now thump it one more time. Keep your direction to the left. Looks okay.
So he's trying big ears, but I think he had a suspension line somehow caught on his.
All right, let's look
his
left,
speed bar.
lean left. This is flyable.
Now that you
but-
mentioned that, Mark, I actually did have an
Now,
incident
I want
this
you to
summer
look on your
where
risers.
my
Do you
brake
have a
was
line a
looped
little
around
goofy
the
around
trimmer.
something on your right, where it comes down?
And so it might effectively,
And now I'd like
the
you
brake
to
line
turn
was
that
short
glider to the left.
by a foot. And I
90
took off,
degrees.
but then I'm turning to the right.
You
And
have good control.
you know, I saw the wing. The wing was good when it came up, right? It was all perfectly clear, and there was no knots in the wing. So when I turned, now I'm getting an unaccounted for turn to the right. What the hell's going on? Well, first thing you got to do is you got to turn away from the hill, and then I'm flying away from the hill, and I look up and I go, oh shit! And there was the brake down through the trim tabs. Pop that loose, and life's good.
All right, well, so in general, if I have a knot, I try to favor the flying side. So if the deformation is on this side, I've kind of come to the conclusion that I want to make my turns to the right. In this case, I would prefer to keep this flying and not try to force the deformed side to do the flying. You have a thought on that?
As long as you're clear trees.
Well, right. So if you think it's real bad, then maybe your approach. Well, in this case, your approach would be, using right turns going in. If it was the other way around, where it was like this, and I was really concerned with how bad the knot was, I might make a left set of approaches in.
Thermal to the left. go keep
Right.
Don't thermal right.
If you have a knot that is central, oftentimes we'll see an issue on the center of the glider. That's very nominal. That's maybe it costs you a little speed, but if you're flying through space and it's here, that's not really an issue. The farther outboard it is, the more the problem. Having issues on the leading edge, between your A's and your B's, that's a little bit more serious. Your A gliders are very tolerant. I've had a situation where I had a line, I didn't clear my riser right, and I had a D line all the way around the riser set on one side, and the glider flew down. Had my attention, you know what I mean, because it was, I attached it poorly, and it flew all the way down. There's nothing you're going to be able to do about that. So bottom line, that's it. A good thump on it. You can do big ears. You have that stabilo line. That's a pretty good one. You can be flying through space and take a hit. Your lines all go slack, and then when they tighten up, it traps your tip. We call that a cravat, and probably that's where that stabilo line is most util. You guys will run into, generally speaking, where we get the situations is where we've launched off and we have a little friction knot or some debris or something, and now you have to contend with it. So getting out into space, away from the hill, where you can do those things. Anyways, I think that kind of wraps up the mainstay of what I wanted to talk to you guys about today. Twist, emergency reserve, basic weather. I think we tagged it all. Thoughts or questions?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks for
Marc.
letting us be in the center of attention, and letting us all learn from the experience.
I think one of the lessons I learned from my experience was always be connected and be active to the glider.
It was kind of the same thing I took away from my collapse.
Yeah, so when I do a single wrap on the brake, I was like, just hold my hand on this position, but don't give any input to the glider. Not connected to the glider. I was like, when I do a single wrap, my hand is here instead of give 2 or 3 pounds to the glider. So I was not connected to the glider. And another thing I want to share is never hold the riser in any situation. It doesn't help you to be connected to the glider.
Good. So you can take this to yourself, but you can also pass it on to the new people. And that's, I kind of snap my fingers and I say this, and it's, I feel like that's a large part of, it's no joke. When the new person comes in and you're trying to wake them up to the realities of this. I kind of speak of that postcard. People, oftentimes they come in and they think, oh, I'm going to fly and it's going to be bird-like and it's I can get out into space and it's just that. But the reality is you're in a torrent of activity out there. The glass off flying that we do, it's wonderful, way less complicated, and that's why summer we had all of you flying once the landing field is in shade and the sun is low and this and that. But now, all of you are going to have your biggest season this April, May. The thermal season is right around the corner, faster than you would think. It's breaking down now, and I'm already kind of counting the number of few weeks I have of rain. No shit, it's like that. So right now, you have, with this low arcing sun, you have the moment to try out, if you want to try to trade your wings, this and that, try other stuff, your ENBs, and it'll give you opportunity. We have more south launch activity though, and we have a little bit more carnivorous kind of activity because of the way the topography is here, the way the wind floats in. Flag wave, that you can have nice conditions from south launch to the Yars wall. Then it can be 1,000 feet per minute sink getting from the Yars wall to the landing field. You can be surprised. Don't dally out there. Take stock, and you don't have a visual on what the other gliders are doing. Have your radios on. Even if I'm not out there, generally speaking, I see quite a bit of what's going on, and if I recognize your glider, anyways, I'll try to get a word into you. But have your radios on and tell the other guy, hey, I hit big sink coming out, so that you give warning to each other. The south approach is a tricky one. and that infamous video of Flipper, misjudging his headwind run. There are all of these elements where you can help each other. But to go all the way back to the finger snap, when you see a new guy come in, you're trying to wake them up to the realities of what we're dealing with. That was a wake-up call for you. I felt like you articulated very well, your summation right here. That you took the rap, but you weren't connected. So that's it. You're on a pendulum. Funny thing. All right, I'm going to stop there and call this good. We'll probably take another swing. Gordon, do you have something you want to add to this?
Well, yeah, I wanted to talk about muscle memory.
Muscle memory, and actually, I thought you might go into MM5 with these guys, depending on how much you want to take. I'm gonna quit, go find a tree, and why don't you wrap up? And however much you guys want to extend this, we're here for you. Okay? Thank you very much.
Thank you. You guys got another 5 minutes?
Yeah.
So,
As long as you wanna go, Gordon.
Yeah.
So, I think all we've talked about today, what Marc's talked about, is hugely impacted by muscle memory. And so, one of your goals for getting out and just flying is to automatically connect that muscle movement to so that you don't have to think about what maneuver you need to do next. If you have to think about it, you say, oh, I better bury this brake. Or should I bury this brake? Oh yeah, I better bury this brake. I'm burying this brake, you're now 2 seconds late, right? So you need to know to bury that brake within a quarter second. That's how quick it needs to become. So really what you're trying to do in all of this, and all these repetitive flights, is to get to the point where you have that muscle memory. And you see it all the time. Well, if you guys have been out kiting, you realize you have zero muscle memory there, right? And it's just completely foreign, and it's foreign to you for a couple of reasons, but one of them is you just don't know what you need to be doing right this second. You have to think about it. And by the time you can get that thought to your hands, it's too late. And it's really, really cumbersome. And so kiting is kind of a caricature of what's happening and what's happening between your brain and your hand. So really, your goal out there when you're flying is to figure this stuff out, get that brain imprinted with this muscle memory. That's where an SIV clinic comes in fantastic, right? It's forcing you to do things that are quite extreme, for your skill set, and again, after 12 toes, 4 toes a day for 3 days, by the time you get to the end of that 12th toe, you really have imprinted your brain with what do I need to do and when, and so you don't have to think about it. It's just natural. I think we didn't talk about it today, but and get Marc's input on this, because I'm not your instructor, he's your instructor. But part of that muscle memory, I think, could be helped with some dolphin maneuvers. And I think a dolphin maneuver for relatively new pilots is pretty safe. I don't think you're going to be putting in so much input into a dolphin maneuver that you're going to be collapsing the wing. If you do collapse the wing, you'll collapse leading edge when it pitches forward, and it'll open right back up again. Again, you're on an A. Anytime we talk about doing any maneuver, make sure you've got plenty of altitude. Don't ever do any of the stuff near the ground or near the trees. But what would be cool about doing some dolphins is that then you're going to start to connect the timing of your wing with your brain. You're gonna now, you don't want to do this, right? This is not what you want to do. That's piloted deuce oscillation. I don't know if you've done it yet in a thermal condition, but you can get it going this way too, and that's bad. But again, you get it going this way, pilot induced oscillation, because you're 180 degrees out of what your hands should be doing when you're pitching back and forth like that. And eventually you get that connected, and you don't pitch back and forth like this. You settle it out, and you can fly flat and straight. But by doing these dolphins, by doing this pitch control maneuver, you can get to know the dynamics of your wing. Now you're making it happen, but now you know how long how long is it gonna take for the wing to go from back here to over your head to out in front of you? What's that timing? Is it 2 seconds? Is it 3 seconds? How long is it? And how aggressive is it gonna be? And then once you get those dolphins going, and again, make sure you get sign off from Marc before you do these things. Once you get a good dolphin going, then you can practice stopping, the getting the wing to stop instead of shooting forward. Get it to stop. You got this nice big dolphin going. Now do it this way. Oh, now you're flying flat and straight again. You've stopped it over your head. There's some good YouTubes on that subject. Look up pitch control. There's a bunch of good YouTubes on that subject.
That's the first thing you had me do on the big ladder, actually.
Is it?
Yeah, Mark did.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So he's cool with it. Just make sure he knows that you're doing it on purpose.
He was the one telling me to do it.
Yeah.
He was on the radio. So
Yeah. So yeah, that and same thing. All this stuff we do, the objective is to get that muscle memory going. I do tricks. I learned to do tricks by doing a whole bunch of toes over the water, doing a bunch of clinics, and then I started. Maybe I started doing this before. The first thing I started doing was doing a lot of top landing, right? Top landing. I used to do 12 top landings a day, and what that taught me was it gave me that muscle memory needed to get in there and get on the ground. And because again, if you're having to think about it, you're gonna be a second or two late. By doing it over and over and over again, I was able to connect my hands directly to my brain rather than having to think about it. And then I started doing wing overs in frontal launch, and those, and again, timing wise, you had to have that perfect. I fucked them up once. I flew through a tree one time and fell. Luckily, I fell to the ground, but it flew right. I just hit a pocket of sink right as I was doing a big wing over and went to the ground. But again, doing that stuff was getting my muscle memory going, and then I went out and did a bunch of clinics. Maybe I'd done a clinic before, but same thing. First couple of clinics were SIV clinics where we were doing nothing but safety maneuvers, and then third clinic I started doing acro, and all that stuff was then just welding in this timing and the dynamics of my wing. Every time you were asking about wings. Every time you change your wing, all that dynamic changes, and so you're going to have to reconnect. You're going to have to reprogram that timing, and I've gotten into trouble with that as well. When first few flights I had on my little freestyle wing, my F gravity, I was putting in it was old school, right? I was putting in gangster hand input and into my little freestyle wing and plowed into the side of the bank in Whidbey Island, and I threw dirt up in the air, pounded right at the rim, and walked away. But it was I didn't have the muscle memory. I had the muscle memory for the gangster, not for the F gravity. So by all means, we didn't answer your question earlier, but by all means, go ahead and advance your skill set. Kind of always challenge yourself 10, 15%. But when you step up to a new wing, know that all the muscle memory that you have today has all been, it's not as good. It's now not as good as it was on your other wing. So back off a little bit. Don't fly in as strong of conditions. Just so step up here, but back off here, and then that'll balance it out. And then get a lot of flights, in mellower conditions, and go do an SIV clinic on a new wing. That's really going to imprint that muscle memory into your brain. So that's all I had.
Tangential question.
Yep.
SIV clinics, everybody espouses extols the virtues of doing it right. But, every time I read the manuals for my glider, it says that your warranty is voided if you put it through that kind of stress because it's not designed to take those loads.
Is that right?
So yeah, I'm trying to
Really?
figure out. Yeah, have you read I'm not sure it said it on the Nova, but it says it on the Explorer.
Ignore that.
You cannot subject these
Ignore
intentionally to
that.
these loads.
Oh, you just close the glider warranty at the end of the day.
So what do you do? Go get a used glider that's going to fall apart the first time you put it into those loads? Right?
Well,
You buy two.
I've never met anybody that's gotten a warranty claim. Well, that's not
Yeah.
totally true. Like, we had a guy with a brand new gangster,
Yeah.
brand new, You guys know Tom Allen? He's an older guy, older than me. He bought a brand new Gangster again. We're going back 15 years. And the Gangster was kind of the first freestyle wing and back in the day. And they beefed it up so that you could do acro on it. And that's what everybody was doing acro on here in the States. Chris was really good at selling the Gangster. But he flew off. Bink, one line broke. Bink, another line broke. Bink, another line broke. And I don't, something in the shipping or manufacturing must have chopped those lines, but it wasn't noticeable. And he's now going, can I fly this thing down? Should I toss? And he did. I can't remember exactly how many lines. More than 2 lines popped before he got to the ground. So he did get a warranty replacement for that one. And he didn't get a chance to do it. Luckily, he didn't do an SIV on that one.
Oh, the blowout that he had?
Yeah, because VDub had a manufacturing defect in his Yeti.
Yeah.
Got that one replaced.
Yeah.
Also.
All this talk about Yetis is so reassuring.
I know. Pie gang. It's out.
Yeah. So anyway, if your wing doesn't have any manufacturing defects, you're probably not going to be making a warranty claim on it. So go do it.
It wasn't really the point of the warranty claim, it's just that they're saying that don't ever do this, it's not designed to take these kinds of loads.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like, okay, great, is it compromised the week I get back from SIV, do I need to send it all in and get it tuned?
Well, I would say that they're just it's a disclaimer. They're covering their butts because the reality is they design them so that you can suffer huge issues, at altitude when you're flying cross country. You can hit those things really, really hard, and they're gonna survive, and they design them that way. So I would say that there's nothing you do in a traditional clinic, SIV clinic, that would be any more traumatic than what you're gonna experience if you're doing big XCs and stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I would think that your going to SIV clinic would be within your designed operations of flight loads.
Yeah.
The biggest one
Maybe
is,
not acro, but.
yeah, the biggest one's gonna
Unless
be
it was an acro
the full
thing.
stall, and even that one's
I
really
wouldn't
not that
wanna fly
traumatic.
it, wasn't.
I think it's specific,
Yeah.
specifically that one.
Yeah, that's weird.
Although I did exit a stall prematurely with it behind me and have the most massive funnel.
Yeah.
It was quite a
Yeah.
buffering moment.
Yeah, I've done that
Put a lot of stress on your wing.
too many times.
What's that?
The stalls put a lot of stress on your wing.
Full stall, when they come out of it, I guess it's pretty violent.
Yeah, it's probably not that violent if you do them correctly. Because you go into the stall and that's pretty mellow. The wing falls up into a ball of nylon and you're floating forward, and then now you're underneath it again, and you're just descending probably at 1,100 feet per second and 1,100 feet per minute. So that's pretty mellow. You two-stage it. You bring your hands up to here. That gets 3/4 of the wing open. That's pretty benign. Then you go hands up, let it restart, and that's pretty benign. Now, if you do it wrong and the wing's behind you, you go hands up, wing can shoot out from you, in front of you, and then you fall down and you can hammer the lines. So a screwed up full stall could be pretty aggressive on the wing. I've heard of guys falling into the wing and blowing them in half. They were doing acro. It wasn't SIV. Yeah, that's happened as well.
So for beginners, when do you recommend they take a FIV?
The instructors are gonna work with you proportionally in terms of, based on your current skill set, and they're gonna watch you on your first run. They're gonna look and see how you're doing, see how you're listening, see what your inputs are. They're really good at evaluating you pretty quickly. They're gonna ask you how many flights do you have, and if it's 20, they're gonna work with you proportional to the fact that you've only had 20. I had a friend of mine, she had never flown before. Her first flight was a tow
No
over
kidding.
the water. Yeah. So I would say, you know, anytime you're ready, anytime you can get a couple of people together and go to the Bay Area, or no, where is it? It's Santa Barbara, right?
There's one north of the Bay Area, that Lake Berryessa or whatever, that's pretty popular.
That's actually north of Santa Barbara.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, excuse me.
I did
No,
work
Lake
on
Berryessa,
it.
sorry, that's Napa, isn't it? Yes, I'm sorry, you're right, sorry.
That's popular.
You doing that this winter?
Me? Well, the one school, Eagles partner, they're booked through June already. But I know Torrey Pines also hosts up there, so I've been trying to get them to release their schedule for next year because they haven't posted their schedule.
You did yours at Mossy Rock, right? Right here in state.
Yeah. And I got only 6 toes. You go down there and you might get 9 or 12. So that's why I'm looking at going down there now.
Again, what I said earlier, just sooner rather than later, you know, and with whoever's teaching them. I can't speak for Maddie, but was that who you were with?
Yeah, Maddie Senior.
Yeah, I can't speak for him, but I haven't heard any.
I had a great experience.
Yeah, I've had 3 coaches in my career. Chris was my first. He took me through the SIV clinics. I think he's still doing them, isn't he?
I kind of heard he kind of got out of that business.
Did he?
Or he hasn't been doing it. Anyone else heard on that?
Santa Croce?
Santa Croce? Huh? Santa Croce, yeah. I heard he's a phenomenal coach.
Yeah, and then the other guy is Brad Ganuccio, and I know he has a boat, and I've towed behind that boat, not when he was driving it, but I know the boat.
Matt Hinsey's doing them
Matt, yeah.
here. Also, the acro guys, they just go down there for tows, $50 a tow. So if you just want to go get some tows, I mean, although you don't have a coach, so.
Yeah, I would not recommend that until after you've had 1 or 2 SIV clinics. You know, I'm all for just paying for it per tow, but I think you need, if you want to do anything other than the tow itself, without a coach, you know, the driver's going to coach you through the launch, the takeoff, and getting altitude, and then all you have to do is fly around and land. So, you know, the tow itself is not such a big deal, but trying to do any significant maneuvers, you know, SIV class maneuvers is not advisable without having been with a coach.
What about the dolphin maneuvers? Like, how early do you suggest we start practicing these?
Right away. Yeah. Again, I think it's a pretty benign maneuver as long as you're not getting really out of control, like in that super surge forward where your leading edge is about to collapse on you, or does collapse on you. If it does, you can just kind of go hands up, and the wing will start to fly again, and it never really stops flying. You're here, and then it'll roll up, but now you're coming down, and now you've got all that energy as you descend. That's going to open the wing up and have it fly right away, and so it's going to be pretty benign. The only issue would be asymmetries. You know, if your hands are even, then it's just going to reopen even, and it'll start flying again. So, but again, I think to get to that point, most people, not everybody, but most people would start getting kind of nervous. That big of a surge would start to make them nervous, and so it's not likely that you're going to get such a big surge that you'll collapse the leading edge. But that's the issue at hand, is if you collapse that leading edge. But again, get a good dolphin going, and then practice stopping the dolphin over your head, and learn that timing, learn that rhythm.
And do quick 360s and try to exit on a heading.
Yeah.
They're good too.
Yeah, that's good.
The 10-second turn that Mitch was talking about?
Yeah.
Thanks, Mark. Appreciate it.
Well, that's like I said, that's all I've got. But hey, if you have questions, please ask them. Ask them now or ask them later. I'm guilty of learning some things and then not something in between, and I fill in the gap with my own imagination. That can be really bad. So, because I can deduce what I think goes in there, and I can be completely wrong. So, yeah. by all means, ask questions.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.